Good morning, and thank you for tuning in to the Global Current. I'm Zanele Njaba.
And I'm Liam Scollins.
Today in news, South Korea's president fires the country's prime minister,
The United Nations votes on the Human Rights Council's new membership.
and Russia's alleged involvement in the United States elections.
In analysis, a deeper look into the allegations against Russia.
Violence in Myanmar complicates its transition to democracy.
Then, Emily Livide brings us an interview with Alex Weber, who works with NaTakallam, an organization that pairs Syrian refugees with Arabic language learners via the internet.
And now, Priya Bave reports on the sacking of South Korea's prime minister.
South Korean President Park Geun-hye has sacked the country's prime minister amid an ongoing political scandal that threatens to topple her administration. Recently, protesters have been calling for President Park to resign since revelations last week that her close friend, confidant, and advisor Choi Soon-sil may have seen secret government documents and influenced important policies despite holding no official government position. According to the New York Times, it is thought that Choi may have used her influence on Park to coerce large companies to donate more than $70 million to two foundations she controlled. A warrant was issued Wednesday, November 2nd for Choi's arrest. Seoul's Central District Prosecutor's Office confirms that Choi has been detained and faces charges of abuse of power and attempted fraud. In the face of Choi's arrest, President Park's approval ratings have fallen to single digits. Park replaced her Prime Minister Hwang Ko-yan as well as two other top cabinet members on Wednesday in her latest bid to contain the political scandal. The move was part of a planned reshuffle of senior civil servants and ministers aimed at setting up a cross-party neutral cabinet and appeasing public anger with the president and her administration. Still, 55.3% of South Korean citizens said Park should resign, and if not, the National Assembly should push for her impeachment. The number is up 13 percentage points from last week's 42.3%. In addition to the few cabinet members the president has replaced, multiple aides to President Park have also resigned in the wake of the scandal. The resignations include that of 4 senior secretaries responsible for matters such as political affairs and policy coordination. In the media, Choi is portrayed as a Rasputin-like figure who has manipulated and brainwashed a weak-minded President Park. Analysts in the media doubt that Park can survive the scandal simply by replacing her cabinet, given that it is largely concerning her personal judgment. Park herself has refrained from speaking to the media with the exception of a televised public apology, in which Park admitted Choi has looked at some documents and said her heart is breaking over the concerns caused to the public. This is Priya Bave reporting for the Global Current.
Up next, Santiago Lasada reports on the UNGA's vote on new membership in the Human Rights Council.
On the 28th of October 2016, the United Nations General Assembly voted by secret ballot the new 14 states to serve on the Human Rights Council, an intergovernmental body within the UN that was created in 2006. The 46-member council is responsible for strengthening the promotion and protection of human rights all over the world. The UN News Center says that it is also in charge of addressing situations of human rights violations and making recommendations on them. All of its members are selected by the General Assembly, and they have the ability to meet and discuss all thematic human rights issues and situations that require its attention throughout the year. When it came to selecting countries to represent Eastern Europe, the New York Times reports that Russia narrowly lost its seat on the council to Croatia and Hungary, signaling international dismay with the military power's actions in Syria. This is shocking because it is the first time in which a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council lost its seat. When asked about whether Syria had anything to do with the vote, Russian ambassador to the UN, Vitaly Churkin, declined to answer and said, "We need a break." From his point of view, Croatia and Hungary are not as in tune with international diplomacy as Russia is. A report from the Wall Street Journal claims that in recent times there have been efforts to shame and isolate Russia for supporting Syria's regime in the siege city of Aleppo. During meetings with the Security Council and the Human Rights Council, many member states said that the horrors committed in Aleppo by Syria and its allies, like Russia, amount to war crimes. Although it does not have the authority to take action, the Council can exert pressure on the violating country as well as set up social rapporteurs to investigate and report the abuses. Many believe that the vote was unfair because nations accused of violating human rights, such as Saudi Arabia, smoothly sailed past the vote and won another 3-year seat. Many non-governmental human rights organizations claim that the organization has been taken over by nations seeking to continue their own agendas and deflect criticism from others. According to Russia Today, the Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International published a joint statement in which they condemned Saudi Arabia for carrying out domestic executions and maintaining laws which favor men over women. The executive director of UN Watch, Hillel Noor says that the non-election of Russia into the Council shows that the nations of the world can reject abusers if they choose. To him, this makes the election of countries like Saudi Arabia, China, and Cuba even more unbelievable. The renewal of Saudi Arabia's seat has greatly triggered Iran's criticism as well. ABC News states that according to Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, Saudi Arabia's seat on the Council shows that human rights is merely a direction of political interest. Iran has no diplomatic relations with Saudi Arabia, and both countries support opposite sides in regional conflicts. In Yemen, a Saudi-led military coalition is currently battling against Iran-backed Shiite rebels. For the Global Current, this is Santiago Lozada.
Next this morning, Lindsay Cole reports on allegations that the Russian government has attempted to interfere with the United States presidential elections.
The 2016 United States presidential campaign and coming election have brought on several internet hacking scams carried out by the Russian government in an attempt to gain U.S. political information. Most recently, the New York Times has reported that Alexander Zarkov, Russia's consulate general in Houston, addressed letters to the officials in Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma requesting a Russian officer be allowed to observe polling locations in the 3 states. The requests were denied, however, as Russian motives were seen as suspicious. Reuters reports that the U.S. election officials have been warned Russia may attempt to discredit this year's election by posting false reports of voter fraud. The U.S. government formally accused Russia of cyber attacks against the Democratic Party in early October, and it estimated that the voter registration databases of at least 20 states were targeted. But there is no evidence to suggest the attacks were successful. The Washington Post reports that while the White House has issued that it will respond proportionally to Russia's interference, it is unclear what steps the administration will take. Experts speculate that the next step may include economic sanctions, indictments for hacking, ejection of Russian diplomats from the State Department, or counter cyber attacks. Representative Adam Schiff, member of the House Intelligence Committee, said that the best way to push back is in a truly international effort to let Russians know there will be costs to the latest form of cyber aggression. Suspicion of voter fraud in the United States has increased this election season, and Russia falsified reports have only echoed this sentiment. Presidential candidate Donald Trump has repeatedly stated his beliefs that the election is rigged, especially after reports that the DNC had worked with the Clinton campaign against Senator Sanders in the primary election. CNN reports, however, that there is a bipartisan opposition to these claims. Mike Pence, Donald Trump's vice presidential nominee, said that he believes the sense of a rigged election comes from the bias in the media and not from the election process itself. Trump's accusations of a rigged election have increased tensions between the 2 major party candidates, leading Democratic Party candidate Hillary Clinton to accuse Trump of being Putin's puppet. Reuters reports that Trump has refused to acknowledge Russia's involvement in the hacking of Democratic Party emails and has frequently stated that his belief that President Putin is a stronger leader than President Obama. According to CNN, President Obama has assured the public that election fraud is a negligible threat, saying that there is no serious person out there who would suggest somehow that you could even rig America's elections. RT News reports that Russian President Vladimir Putin said the conspiracy of Russian election interference is a tactic that the White House is using to manipulate the American people. Putin believes the motives of the White House were to increase support for Hillary Clinton and to distract the public from the information leaked about the DNC. He further states that there are no Russian interests involved in the election, where both candidates have made anti-Russia statements. For the Global Current, this is Lindsay Cole.
Next up, Vincent Maresca examines the implications of the allegations against Russia.
With just a week until the U.S. elections, relations between Russia and the United States reached a new low due to hacking scandals and geopolitical tensions. Russia's influence in the presidential election began in July 2016 when a group of hackers named Guccifer 2.0 stole 20,000 emails from the Democratic National Committee. WikiLeaks received these emails and then released them to the public. According to CBS News, U.S. intelligence agencies point to Russian insiders behind the hacking, with their goal being to interfere with the American electoral process. In addition, both Russia and the United States NATO allies are engaged in military drills in the Baltic region and in the Balkans. However, is Russia acting as the aggressor in both these situations? According to a press release distributed in early October by the Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. intelligence community officially declared that the Russian government had a level of direct involvement in the efforts to hack emails from political organizations, as these incidences illustrated a level of sophistication as well as a persistent pattern. Although some states reported scanning of election devices, the intelligence community has not attributed this activity to the Russian government. The release received expected criticism from the Kremlin. Speaking at the 13th Annual Valdai Club in Sochi, President Vladimir Putin criticized the NATO expansion, calling it clearly out of date. He also added, quote, Despite all the talk about the need to adapt to the new reality, no real adaptation takes place, unquote. In addition, he questioned allegations that his government played a role in the July hacking of the DNC.
Hysteria has been fueled within the US with regard to Russia's alleged influence upon the current presidential election. Concentrate their efforts on Russia's alleged spies or conduits of influence. I'm wondering, I'd like to pose the same question to you. Is there anyone who seriously thinks that Russia can in any way influence the choice of the American people?
During that same conference, NBC News reporter Keir Simmons interviewed Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesperson. Peskov said that Moscow is looking forward to cooperate with the next administration. In regards to Putin's willingness to foster relations,
Soundbite's way too long. Cut it down, make it work.
I'm still the head of a large power, and that's why I have to show restraint, and I have to tread carefully about what I say. Aggressiveness is not my style. But still, I think in this audience we have to be frank with each other. We have to engage in an open discussion. Otherwise, it's going to be absolutely senseless. It's going to be bland and uninteresting. So that is the style set forward for our discussion.
Peskov called the cyber attacks interesting and said no American official managed to present any trustful evidence. Finally, when asked about the NATO confrontation along the Russian border, he mentioned that Russia feels obliged to take some countermeasure. If Russia was an integral part in the email act, then what is the motivation for intervention in the American election? Retired four-star Admiral James Stavridis stated that Russia has such capabilities to hack into computers for espionage purposes, since the country favors having a Trump than a Clinton presidency. However, Justin Arvey of Fidelis Cybersecurity warned that there is no proof of the links between the hackers and the Russian government. Whether the hacking affects democracy in the United States or not, the press release by the Department of Homeland Security reveals potential security vulnerabilities in the election machines. These vulnerabilities may not only give Americans reasons to contest the election results, they have the potential to uproot general faith in the democratic process. Such a change in culture would cause a domestic crisis for the incoming presidents, a crisis that would effectively divert attention from international troublemakers like Russia. Whether this result will come to pass remains to be seen. For now, both Russian and American leaders must wait and see what November 8 yields. This is Vincent Maresca reporting for the Global Current.
And now, Michael Ayanolfo analyzes the impact that ethnic violence is playing in Myanmar's transition to a democratic government.
The country of Myanmar, also called Burma, has undergone immense difficulties during its transition to a civilian government over the past 6 months. As the country had previously been ruled by a military junta for decades, it still contends with the presence of the military throughout society. For example, the military still controls 25% of seats in parliament and also has significant influence over government agencies. The latest difficulties the country faces stem from the October 9th attacks on guards at the border between Myanmar and Bangladesh in the Rakhine state, leaving 9 people dead. The government has openly blamed these attacks on the minority Rohingya ethnic group. The Rohingya are one of over 135 ethnic groups present within Myanmar. However, they are not granted citizenship as the government considers them migrants from Bangladesh. In addition, many of them are Muslims, a fact that counters the Buddhist majority in Myanmar. This religious difference also contributes to the Rohingyas' persecution. In response to the border attack, the government and security forces of Myanmar have locked down Rohingyas' villages and forced people to move to refugee camps. One Rohingya man told the New York Times, quote, "On the night of October 9th, I was fast asleep. Suddenly I heard the sound of a gun at 3 in the morning. The sound was coming from the border guard post. I woke up my family and ran away, passing through the farm. We could not carry anything with us because we just had to run away to save our lives." End quote. His experience is just one of many, and there have been reports of human rights violations, such as killings and unjustified detentions of suspects. One man spoke to Al Jazeera and described a brutal experience in which 2 women and their children were murdered in their own home. He explains,
in Cherubim Parish, they killed, some families. Like there's one delivery case just before 2 days ago. While they all are there, the military come into the home and then they shot, including baby and also women and other people.
Human rights groups also note that relief organizations have not been able to access the area. Hunger has also become extremely problematic due to the difficulty that international organizations have experienced in providing aid to the area in light of military restrictions. Marta Kazbuska, who organized food aid in Myanmar through a non-profit organization, told the New York Times, quote, "The longer this situation continues, the more vulnerable the people will get, as food supplies dwindle and life-threatening health problems are left untreated," unquote. So far, the United Nations has classified 50,000 people as, quote, "food insecure," unquote. Many of those included our children. All of this turmoil is occurring at a critical time for Myanmar. The country's current civilian leader, Aung San Suu Kyi, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, has only been in power briefly, but is already facing pressure and criticism because of the current crisis. While it is true that she shares power with the military, particularly in areas that affect the country's security, many people are becoming disillusioned with her leadership and are claiming that her government has difficulty delegating responsibilities when she is unavailable. For example, an international observer told ABC News, quote, "Right now, there's only one person calling the shots. When she's abroad, nothing gets done," end quote. Within the country, there are differences of opinion on the crisis, and in some cases, who caused the crisis. For example, a Rakhine Buddhist monk blamed the Rohingya for the crisis. He told Al Jazeera,
"Since they are the majority in northern Rakhine, they want to dominate this land, and they don't hesitate to kill Rakhine people. I think it is very dangerous for us in the future."
This stance is similar to the stance of the government. A government spokesman told the New York Times that reports of violence were not true. He even claimed that areas were not on lockdown and that he could give outside journalists access. Regardless of whether one believes the Rohingya are at fault or not, it is clear that the way in which the government is reacting to the current difficulties could negatively affect the country's transition to democracy and its ability to receive assistance from the international community. On October 7th, just 2 days before the initial attack on the border officers that sparked the unrest, the Obama administration lifted all economic sanctions on Myanmar, officially paving the way for normalization of relations between the countries. Al Jazeera reports that in a letter to Congress, the president said, quote, "I have determined that the situation that gave rise to the national emergency with respect to Burma has been significantly altered by Burma's substantial advances to promote democracy, including historic elections in November 2015, unquote. That said, how the government reacts to the crisis and whether the violence continues may have a deterministic effect on the next administration's evaluation of the success of democratization in Myanmar. The lifting of sanctions could also have an impact on the well-being of the average citizen of Myanmar. Without sanctions, it is possible for the lives of many in Myanmar to improve. The ICEF, an international organization that focuses on development, explains that Myanmar has vast natural resources, a young population that can be an effective workforce, and is geographically positioned near powerful countries in Asia, such as China. These neighbors could become a market for the many resources that Myanmar possesses. The downside is that the country is currently very poor, with the ICF noting that the country needs, quote, everything, unquote. Myanmar is lacking effective infrastructure, and its educational facilities need to be upgraded so that the young workforce has the proper tools to succeed. Given this, the government's reaction to the situation has the potential to decrease investment and assistance from the international community. This could, in turn, cause the military to retake power in the country and blame the crisis solely on Aung San Suu Kyi and the civilian government, even though both parties are at fault. The situation is the first real test of Myanmar's transition to democracy, and depending on its resolution, it can keep the transition moving forward or bring it to a complete stop. For now, the international community will have to wait and see, while doing as much as it can to gain access to those areas in the country where the Rohingya are suffering. This is Michael Ionelvo for the Global Current.
Finally, this morning, the Global Current's Emily Lividay brings us an interview with Alex Weber, who works for NaTakallam, an organization that pairs Syrian refugees with Arabic language learners.
Good morning, Global Current listeners. This is Emily Lividay, and I am sitting here with Alex Weber of the startup NaTakallam. Alex, welcome. Could you tell us first briefly what NaTakallam is?
NaTakallam is a startup that works with Syrian refugees who teach Arabic over Skype and WhatsApp to students all across the globe.
And this is actually not my first time interviewing you. For anyone out there who listens to this, I actually interviewed Alex back in February, and I know a lot has changed. So if you could just tell us what's new with NaTakallam.
Okay, sure. Well, back in February, NaTakallam was still primarily a conversation platform. Students would sign up and just expect a conversation with a Syrian refugee, which to anyone who would speak Arabic or any sort of dialect of Arabic would be super exciting, because you get to learn more of dialect and you get to hone in on your speaking skills, which for a lot of people is an issue, especially in classroom Arabic, because you only really get to learn modern standard Arabic or Fusha, which is not spoken on a day-to-day basis. It's more news reporters. Like if we were talking in Arabic right now, we would be talking in Fusha. We wouldn't be talking in dialect or Amir.
Mm-hmm.
And classrooms don't really address that as much right now. That's really an issue that has plagued several universities with their Arabic programs.
So who have you been partnering with to develop your own curriculum?
Well, another way that NaTakallam has changed is that we've developed more of a curriculum-based system from the conversation platform that I was talking about. And now beginners can sign up and sort of learn Arabic with materials from the beginning. Just like I don't know how to write, I don't know how to read, and it's really great because now we have a lot of aid workers in the Middle East, in Beirut especially, who want to learn this dialect Arabic or Arabic in general to communicate with people in need. And we can have people with zero background come in and really benefit from NaTakallam. So let's see, we have also grown a lot over the past 10 months or so. So now NaTakallam has more of a curriculum base. We also have university partners, we have institutional partners. We launched successful pilots with both George Washington University through their No Lost Generation chapter, and a successful pilot with Swarthmore University in Pennsylvania through their actual Arabic program itself. And upcoming in the next couple of months, actually, we are partnering with Tufts, with Boston College, with Duke University, a lot of bigger schools, and it's really exciting for us because these students will get exposure to a real world problem and see a real world solution in practice. We've also partnered with the International Rescue Committee to provide translation and interpretation services. So refugees who speak Arabic will go online to refugee.info, which is a place where other refugees who are still trapped in the area or are in remote areas of Europe and can't navigate the migrant trails, they can go on here and sort of see how other people have navigated their way through, and safely and legally. So we're helping refugees help refugees. So it's kind of a compound effect. And I kind of geek out about this because this is my this is what I do.
I have to ask, though, because I know a lot of people are probably wondering, what do you guys do in terms of security? How do you make sure that you're not hiring terrorists to teach English to people?
Jeez. Unfortunately, that's a question we do get asked a lot. And it's really sad because, you remember the infamous Skittles, controversy that happened where, I think Donald Trump, compared refugees to a bowl of Skittles and said there were a couple poisoned Skittles. I don't remember who was it that did that. Someone mentioned this. Anyway, the infamous.
So anyway, refugees are not Skittles. We could agree on that.
Perfect. the people leaving Syria, the people leaving this area are not the people propagating violence, on a vastly large scale, like 99.9995, So.
But what are you guys doing when you have people come in who say they want to teach for NaTaKallam?
Right. So
what's the process?
The original process is we'll usually get an email saying, "Hey, I was referred to by a friend who's usually a student or someone we personally know," and they'll reach out to us and we'll ask for their CV. We'll get their statement of interest, like just a natural job application, just same in the U.S. We'll go over their CV. And since now we're focusing more on education as well as conversation, we're looking for people who have advanced degrees, because something that a lot of people don't realize is that Syria is a very highly educated country, especially for the region. The people that we hire have master's degrees in economics. They're lawyers. They have experience working with NGOs who, help children. And these are very highly educated people who just don't have a job because they're running away from literally one of the scariest terror organizations in recent history.
What has your experience been when you've been working with these refugees? Because you do a lot of one-on-one interaction with them, correct?
Correct. Well, I just want to touch back on the vetting and security issue, because it was pretty important. But we do go through and we make sure that we know them and we get to know them. They have Skype interviews with us. We run their name through a background check. We have it covered. It is.
So it's very secure.
It's very secure. The people who are on there are some of the sweetest people I've ever met and interacted with, and honestly some of the coolest people I've ever interacted with. Kind of segueing into your question about my most favorite experience. I was working and talking with a refugee who made his way to Brazil. And, I was kind of talking with him about how he's been doing, because sometimes, you just want to strike up conversation. And he was telling me how he had started to crowdfund for a Syrian food truck in Brazil. And I think that's really cool, because you're bringing your culture through food, and that's something that's
I've never seen a Syrian food truck, and I'd be very interested in that. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
Me too. I'd love to see that in New York, but we'll see if
we'll talk about that in the future.
Absolutely. And yeah, he's so sweet. We actually exchanged phone numbers, and now we'll text at random times, usually about work, but sometimes about other stuff, just life and whatnot. Yeah.
So in summary, these people that teach for NaTaKallam are the sweetest people. They are safe, they are secure, and they're just awesome, right?
Absolutely. They're normal people who have been affected by one of the worst crises in recent history.
So I also want to know, what is your market base? Who are you teaching to?
So primarily our users are people who are in sort of the aid field. So say someone who would work for the Red Cross, just as an example, who is living in an Arab-speaking nation. They will sign up for NaTaKallam with either limited or full Arabic experience, but they want to get to know the dialect of the region, whether they're helping refugees or whether they're helping, do development work in, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon. A lot of them are signing up, and these are people who are, post undergrad all the way up. We've had people in their late 60s signing up, and we've also had children. So it's really varied. There are all sorts of places for a potential market. We have people who have come from Arab diaspora, from all of the political turmoil that has happened over the past 40 years. I'm not an expert in Middle Eastern history yet, but it's definitely a very varied market base. It's kind of interesting to see who signs up. I'd say by and large aid workers, people who just genuinely want to get to know Arabic for work, for personal reasons.
I've also heard that you guys have recently won an award. Can you tell us what that's about and what that means for your future?
Yes. So recently we were at the MIT Enterprise Forum in the Arab region. So this took place in Amman, Jordan. really exciting for us. We were the winner of the entire competition. It was great. It's really, it's a springboard for us, honestly. Due to that, we're now partners with Jusur, which is an organization that works with education in the Middle East. We have developed a ton of university partnerships, like I talked about before, institutional partnerships. We, are in contact, and I believe we have an injection from a venture capital fund in London. So there are a lot of opportunities that have come from, just winning that one competition. I mean, we've placed in other competitions before that, but that's something that's really exciting that comes out of sort of like the second year of being a startup. Like the first year is kind of getting on your feet. The second year is going out and showing the world, like, hey, this is what we're made of. This is our plan. This is how we're going to change the world. Believe in us.
Awesome. You guys are young and hungry. How old are you again, by the way?
I'm 21.
That's crazy.
I guess.
You're doing amazing things, and you're still a student. It's awesome. So since we said that you are a college student, what can other college students do to be able to help with this? Because the refugee crisis is huge and it's expanding. It's really something that we can't ignore, and I think you are proof that college students can help. So if you could just give a little introduction on what we can do.
Well, just in general, for any sort of refugee volunteer opportunities, the International Rescue Committee is always accepting volunteers. I mean, there's still, kind of like an intern process where you go and you apply, and you get an interview. I haven't yet been able to do that myself because of, senior year college student is not necessarily the most, time-friendly engagement.
Yeah, I feel ya.
But I mean, if you're talking NaTaKallam related, we are always accepting, volunteer positions for people who want to help do outreach with the universities. Any sort of university partnership for us means a lot and really, really helps us because, a lot of, our profit margin is, we call ourselves a hybrid organization between nonprofit and for-profit, because a lot of our profit gets reinvested into our business, but at the same time, we're not non-for-profit. So we have to pay people. Just the reason that we are even part for-profit is because they grow faster, just in the nature of the work. But back to what students can do to help.
Yes.
Students at the University of Guelph in Canada are hosting an event to sort of raise awareness of Islamophobia and, break down the stereotypes associated with Muslims and Arabs, because unfortunately there are a lot of stereotypes that we built up over the past 15 years. And they're reaching out and they're breaking down walls, and they're offering free sessions of NaTaKallam that their organization is paying for. So we are offering groups of 15 students paired with one conversation partner from NaTaKallam, and they will get to learn, just sort of like the basics of Arabic from a Syrian refugee. And really, I think that's ingenious. I hadn't thought of that before. Hearing about this program was really eye-opening and really inspiring, honestly, to hear that, students in Canada want to help and they want to interact with refugees, help giving them an income, as well as, compound impact again, as well as breaking down stereotypes and showing how empowering it can be to help give an income, part of a sustainable income, to a refugee.
That's amazing. We hope to see this in more universities around the country and even around the world. But thank you so much for talking to us. You gave us a lot of great advice. That was Alex Weber of NaTaKallam, and this is Emily Lividay for The Global Current.
The Global Current is brought to you by the School of Diplomacy and International Relations at Seton Hall University. Our executive producer is Liam Scollins, our associate producer is Morgan Mount, our news editor is Sean Jadot, our analysis editor is Marissa Hutton, and our interview segment is produced by Emily Lividay. The Global Current theme song is Acid Jazz by Kevin MacLeod. You've been listening to The Global Current on WSOU 89.5 FM, Seton Hall's Pirate Radio.